there is no crazier way to come out than on stage and not in such a public way, celebrating the love of your life. I'm a real crier, so forgive me, but it was definitely a immediate. We knew that was our ending.
It's okay, I cried too. Hey everybody, this is Chris Longo here in the Den of Geek studio at South by Southwest 2025. We are here with the director of Sally, the incredible documentary about astronaut Sally Ride, Cristina Costantini. Thank you so much for coming into the Den of Geek studio.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
So I want to talk about this wonderful film. I think right off the bat, I was already emotional reading the log line in some of your director's statement. But you talk a little bit about Sally Ride being an idol of yours. At what point did you realize how significant Tam's story would ultimately end up being to the piece you actually made?
That's a great question. I was obsessed with Sally as a kid. I painted a mural of her on my elementary school wall. And in 2012, I found out when Sally passed away with the rest of the world that she was survived by her life partner of 27 years, this woman, Tam O'Shaughnessy. And I was just struck by this feeling of just disbelief that she could have gone through that. I mean, NASA was barely ready for a woman at that point. The idea that she would also be queer and closeted in such a homophobic time. It was illegal to be gay in Texas at that time, and they were in Houston, obviously at NASA. And so I just, thought, oh my God, what would that have been like? And so the more I got to research and the more I knew, the more I found the story fascinating. But it wasn't until meeting Tam O'Shaughnessy, and she's like an incredible gift to a documentary filmmaker. She's an amazing storyteller. She has an incredible memory for details. And she more than anything, she's like very willing to be vulnerable and to tell this very vulnerable story of what it was to fall in love in this secret relationship. And, most people, when their loved ones die, they, can, I don't know, they can gloss over things, they can sugarcoat things, but Tam wanted to tell the story of who Sally was, flaws and all, which is remarkable to me.
And you have a few different elements here in the piece where you have obviously incredible archival footage of Sally's journey into space and what that looked like kind of leading into that process. You have some incredible interviews from people within NASA, some great cultural figures like Billie Jean King, obviously Tam's story, kind of underlining it throughout. And then you do some really great stuff with recreations and actual audio of Sally Ride. Can you tell me a little bit about kind of weaving all of those things together? Because that is a massive lift for a documentary.
Yeah, well, thank you for taking notice of all those things. The thing that really excited me getting into the film was truthfully the archive. It is an embarrassment of riches. The cameras and the people behind the cameras at NASA at that time were incredible. And so they were shooting these things like verite scenes, which for a documentary filmmaker is like such a great gift. So we got 5,000 reels, NASA reels, into our system. And it wasn't until we started looking through them that we realized audio was a real problem. And none of them were sound synced, so it's hard to build a scene without So the biggest lift of the project was definitely just syncing the audio. So we got a bunch of 70 millimeter, 35 millimeter, 16. And then it was, once we kind of figured out what the cinematic language of the film was, that we decided that we wanted to shoot these kind of recreation visual elements to tell the love story. Because it was a secret at the time, and because, Tam and Sally didn't document any of it. So there are like 7 pictures of them together. So how do you tell this 27-year-long romance without a single picture of them? They're standing next to each other, but not really like embracing or whatever you would need to do to show a really beautiful romance unfolding. So we integrated these kind of romantic visual elements.
I was just going to say, some of the most powerful shots in the documentary are the few photos she did have, Tam kind of looking at the kitchen table and just bringing back, I think, what seems to be kind of a flood of memories, both good and bad, positive and negative there. Tell me a little bit about kind of your early conversations with Tam about being involved with this project. Was she immediately supportive? Did it take a little bit of time to get into it? How did that kind of unfold?
I think Tam, had a desire for the Sally to be remembered for who she actually was and for all of the complexity that she has. And, she is a national hero and an icon and a trailblazer, and she was celebrated for that in her life. But there's a whole different, more complicated, more beautiful, more interesting part of Sally that Tam was really excited to tell. And she wanted this project to be made, and she wanted to tell her story and her truth. And so that was we were so lucky that she was so brave. It was not that it was easy, going through it. There were moments where we would stop, or she would have to reconsider how far she wanted to go. But she has a different kind of bravery that Sally didn't have. Sally was brave enough to go on a rocket into space, but Tam is brave enough to be vulnerable. Even if that means some people won't like her for it, and she was out before she met Sally, which is always really notable to me.
In the documentary, Tam speaks a lot about like the low points, and clearly there's a pain there where there's such a deep love that she feels for Sally, but at the same time there's so much pain as well. And she talks about different points where she considered moving on from the relationship. But as you went through this process with her, did you feel that she was feeling a sense of almost healing from going through this? Like, did you get any kind of sense of that?
Yeah, I do think that it has been a healing process. She came out publicly in the accepting the Presidential Medal of Freedom for Sally, which is the craziest way to come out in the publicly. Some of their closest friends didn't know that Sally was queer. But then to do it in this way, to do a film that is more complex and more nuanced, I think it has been meaningful for her. Not that it's been easy. I think seeing that much of Sally has brought back a flood of memories at Sundance. Watching it in the theater. It was a very emotional experience. I think everybody was crying. But I do think it has been a healing process for her. Absolutely.
And you mentioned one of the final moments of the doc is Tam receiving that Presidential Medal of Freedom, and a kiss on the cheek from President Obama.
Yeah.
Which is it's just such a powerful piece of footage, especially when you consider the hour plus that comes before it in the documentary.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about your decision to essentially end on that?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those early things where you just, as soon as I learned that, I was like, oh my God, that's an ending. Like there is no crazier way to come out than on stage in such a public way, celebrating the love of your life. Like I'm even moved now, but I was moved by it at the time. I'm still moved by it when I watch it. So it was, I'm a real crier, so forgive me. But it was definitely a immediate. We knew that was our ending.
It's okay. I cried too.
Yeah.
We're in such a different moment in the documentary space now, where especially when you're looking at docs with major cultural figures, particularly like this happens a lot in sports, where a lot of the athletes will have almost a right to the final cut. They'll come in as producers. It seems like it was really refreshing for you to not only work with Tam, not only work with Sally Ride's family, Bear Ride, prominently featured in this documentary, not only to work with NASA, but to seem to have a lot of the freedom to tell
100%.
The true story here, and it seems like there's a lot of support. Is that refreshing for you as a documentarian?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was amazing. Tam was amazing, and to have that trust going in that, Tam isn't going to have final cut, or, Bear isn't going to have final cut. They'll be involved in the process, and it is a process. There's a trust that, you're going to make yourself vulnerable to these people. You have to build the trust, but knowing that you're able to make certain decisions that you might not otherwise, but that's very important to me as a filmmaker, to be able to truly have like editorial independence like that.
Well, Science Fair was such a great documentary as well, that's really beloved and kind of picked up even more steam as it went to streaming. Can you talk a little bit about kind of where you see your filmography going next? Obviously, the science connection between these two
that's
projects.
A great question.
But curious where you want to go next.
Yeah, I mean, I always want to tell science stories. Most of my films have been about things that are deeply personal to me in one way or another. Science fair, I was a science fair kid growing up. I was a science nerd. I'm the kind of kid who paints Sally Ride on the side of your elementary school. Everybody else painted like Michael Jordan or Brett Favre. It was Wisconsin. So, and like, Dilbert is next to Sally, and then it's Sally Ride. Yeah, everything I've done has been fairly personal so far. And I want to make things that, have a compelling love story that say something that are hopefully gripping to watch, but there's a deeper meaning there. And I think Sally is a film that's for anybody who's ever felt like they have to hide part of themselves to get where they want to go. And I think in 2025, that's more relevant than it's ever been. And so it's a strange time for this film to come out. We didn't think it would be all that controversial. And now we're at a time when, trans, gay people, women, everybody is more under attack than they've ever been. So it's been an honor and a privilege to tell this story and have it come out this year.
It's a great place to end it. Thank you so much,
Thank
Cristina.
you so
Appreciate
much.
it.
Thank you. Thanks so much.